Hey everyone, my name is Danielle Perry and I am the host of Breakthrough Conversations. And again, this is a podcast where I feature people and they share a bit of their story about how God has helped them to overcome a difficult challenge or situation in their lives. So I want to thank you so much for tuning in. And if you are back today, then that means you're ready to see part 2 of episode 11, titled Journey from Being Unsaved to Becoming First Lady / Pastor. So here it is, y'all. Check it out. Here's part 2. And if you haven't seen part 1, go and check it out because you'll want to see it. But here's part 2. Be blessed. Talk about just now where you are, I guess, mentally, spiritually, because again, you said you would never imagined yourself marrying a pastor, but now you're here and you started church shortly after you're married. So just what is going on in your mind at that point?
Excited. Really excited about it. Excited about what God was going to do. Looking forward to what God was going to do. Honored to be a part of that part of God's work in the vineyard. It was kind of like, okay, let's do this thing. So where are we going to be? We try to figure out if we're going to be in Dell City, if we're going to be here, where we're going to be. So I went on Morgan's campus, and I got us to be able to use Blount Towers. They had like a little rec room, or if you want to call that. And so just really started finding locations. What can I do to help? What can I do? I knew Baltimore better than he knew Baltimore, right? So but excited. Looking forward to what God was going to do. Didn't know what to expect, but had great expectation that God was going to do something great. Bishop Dennis always taught us about the importance of being who God called you to be. So I felt comfortable and confident in who God was, not so much who I was. So a lot of times Deborah Dennis is a phenomenal example of a woman of God. And that was my first lady. And I watched her. The grace, the laughter, I'm giving them looks, right? And so I would really model what I did. I would, now what would Lady D do right here? Like, what would she say right here? So I kind of reflect a lot, because that's the only really the only example I had. Growing up, I didn't really see the pastors' wives that much. And they weren't really as involved. They led praise and worship, and she was really out front. And so I mimicked her a lot, like what I thought she would do. And I'll go, I ain't gonna say that. She can get away with that. I can't get away with that. And so that's kind of like a trial and error, but I was excited about it, ready to get started, ready to see what God was going to do, nervous, because it's a big charge, a big responsibility. You got people's lives when you're still trying to figure out your own.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, it was a big transition, but it was a great one.
And one of my questions I had was, what was it like in the beginning being a first lady / pastor? What were some of the I'm not even gonna say that, but what was it like?
Challenging and rewarding at the same time. Making sure that people didn't put you on a pedestal that you couldn't be on. But wanting to make sure that everybody felt loved, everybody felt supported. So I really felt like if I did for one, I had to do for others. Like I had to make sure that I attended everything. I was there for everybody. And I love the people that God gave us, because he didn't have to give us anybody. So, but I was really kind of, it was hard trying to navigate being married, still working full time, wanting to have children, and then you got these young people who are leaning and depending on you, and you're still trying to figure it out yourself.
Right.
And so a lot of that was just, how do you stay where you're supposed to stay, in the posture you're supposed to stay in. And so a lot of times I felt myself wearing masks. Because they can't see you upset. I had one person at church say to me one time, I was really tired. He said, you got to get yourself together. He said, you can't look tired. Because if you look tired, then they're going to be tired. I said, if they're tired, they're tired. So the expectations that I put on first ladies and then pastors' wives, it's just not realistic or very human. And so how do you deal with when you're having a bad day? You can't have a bad day.
Right.
How do you deal with the fact that, I remember one time we were walking into the league and we were fussing in the car about something before we got there. That's some husband and wife stuff, just fussing. As soon as we open up that door, hey! Like nothing ever happened,
Right.
I'm like, so having to wear a lot of masks because you don't know who you can really talk to, because you don't want, so that's at the long, like you want a mentor. I needed somebody to kind of mentor me and this. What does that look like? How do I handle this? And I didn't have that. So it was a lot of trial and error, a lot of longing for mentorship, a lot of longing for guidance and understanding, but not having it. So having to put masks on.
Yeah.
So everybody would think that things are always perfect, and it wasn't.
Right, right.
So a lot of masks.
And you were in your 30s at this point, right? And so was Pastor Lawrence. Did you have to sacrifice anything early on?
A lot, because everything, our life became the ministry. So we didn't go on trips a lot. We didn't do a lot. Everything was always based on the ministry. You don't feel like you're sacrificing, though, especially when you love what you're doing. So I didn't feel like it was a sacrifice. I just did it.
Yeah.
And I loved what we did. But sometimes it's, your marriage sometimes is put to the side for the sake of kingdom work, where you need to kind of maybe go away and refresh and rejuvenate and really have time to do that. So sacrifices, absolutely. Were they worth it? A lot of them were, because I found that when you would do that God will pour back into you, and God will give you what you need, and God will open up a different door that you felt like you had to close because of A, B, or C. But sacrifice, absolutely, because you're building something from the ground up.
Right.
There's a lot of sacrifice. I mean, people in my car, people were in my house all day long. I mean, we'll fall asleep because we had a ministry in our house. When we left from work and we went to my home, and I would wake up, they ain't cooking, and I'm like, give me one, like I even mind, go give me something, which I think helped bring the family environment to our ministry. But yeah, it was, people were always in our house. They were always there. They were always welcome. I love having them. But you don't have that time. You don't have that privacy.
Right. And at this point, the congregation is a lot of college students, right? So what were you learning as far as the lessons that God taught you early on in ministry?
What was I learning?
Like, was there anything that you can, or is there anything you can remember that God taught you about yourself early on?
Well, one was to be able to trust God when you can't trace him. I remember when I got saved that night for the last time. And I remember feeling his presence so heavy. And I kept saying, man, if I knew it was going to be like this earlier, I would have done this a long time ago, And I remember waking up the next day and I didn't feel that anymore. What happened? And God said to me, now that you know that I'm here, you have to trust that I'm here.
Yeah.
And so learning to trust him, learning to use the word as a guide and not my own intuition, not what I think. Because sometimes what I think is, a lot of times what I think, it might be in God's will, but it might not be God's time. So just learning how to trust and depend on God. Forgiveness is big. Big on forgiveness. Don't hold grudges. And love hard. Like I love for real. Like if I love you, I love you. Like I love you for real.
That's very true.
And one thing that I learned that I carry on to this day and talk to every kid, every person I deal with is, you're not going to be held accountable for how people treat you, but you will be held accountable for how you treat them. And so always keeping that in mind.
Yep.
And then learning that you have to find some place, or that it's okay to be human. Like it's okay to have a bad day. It's okay to be tired. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay not to be perfect.
Yeah.
Because what you're striving for doesn't exist, because we only have one perfect one, and that's him.
That's right.
And so what I was striving for, wasn't even achievable because I can't do that in my own strength. And so just learning how to be honest with who I am, and that took a long time, and be okay with who I am.
That's right. That's right. Now, are there any any misconceptions or any stereotypes, negative stereotypes that you've heard people say about being a first lady?
Of course. A lot of them depend on the company that you're keeping. You know, in some churches or some denominations or some fellowships, the first lady just sits there and looks cute on the front row. You don't say nothing. You don't do much. And some other ones, you got to do more than just sit on the front row. You got to do this, you got to do that. So it really depends on the circle that you're in. You don't have any problems. That's one. Like, you know, well, your life is perfect. You know, your marriage is perfect. You don't argue. You can't argue. You argue with him? Are you kidding me? You know, the way he prophesied, he ain't prophesied to me in a minute. So you got it. I ain't get it. You know, hearing things sometimes for the first time when the congregation heard it. You know, I had to sit there and smile and go, okay, I'm here. So we're having one at my house today at 3. Okay, come on over. Okay, get home real fast. You know, but learning that, you know, some things is you're not. Your children have to be perfect. You know, your husband and your marriage is perfect. You're daggone near perfect. You don't make any mistakes. You're always put together. And sometimes you're just not. That you should feel honored, and you have to get over things. And that's the thing. You should. Why are you holding on to something? You got an issue with that, you know? Because you will hear all the time about church hurt. You never heard about pastor hurt. But pastors have to deal with. You don't hear that end. And you got to get through that. You got to get over that. Don't make that a big deal. Or you got to be the bigger person. And so some of that stuff is just not true because you're still a person. So just, you know, you're not always together. You don't always want to be there. Sometimes you're too tired and you want to go home. Sometimes you don't want to pray for somebody because you need somebody to pray for you, but you can't tell them that you need them to pray for you. So a lot of different misconceptions. You know, your life is not perfect. You know, a lot of times the task come heavier on you because if you smite the shepherd, right, the sheep is going to scatter. Well, you know, I'm still with that head. So you got to try to come against, and you know, just who you are as a person. When you're trying to be. I remember one pastor said to me years ago when we first started ministry. He said, I need you to come back up to New York, and so I can take you. Looked at me shopping in the city, so you know how to dress like a first lady. And I was like, I thought I dressed pretty nice. You know, he was kind of like letting me know that, you know, you need to step up your game a little bit more. So you know, so because you have to always be put together, you know. And I guess I wasn't put together well enough for him that time. So just stuff like that. Like, you're not always perfect. Things are not always going that well. And sometimes a lot of times you need somebody to pray for you. You don't really have the words to pray for somebody else. So stuff like that.
Yeah. How has it been raising children in ministry?
Wonderful and challenging. Malachi and Isaiah are my hearts. I love them tremendously. I feel blessed and honored to be their mom.
And how old are they for people who don't know?
17 and 15.
Wow,
Malachi
is 17.
And 15.
Ooh,
yes. And
okay.
Gosh, they're just wonderful gifts. Raising boys is no joke. Raising kids, period, is no joke. So how was it? So first of all, very protective. I lost 7 prior to having them. That's another whole story. Yeah, another whole show. But lost 7 prior to having them. So very protective of them. I think it's hard for them sometimes because they have to be perfect. You know, you have to be everywhere. You have to be on everything. You have to be where you're supposed to be, you know, even when you don't want to. They're looking and the spotlight's on you all the time. And so what other people might be able to get away with, you know, is highlighted and broadcasted when you're not just that perfect child. So I think raising children have been challenging, but then also great because the people at church love on them. You know, they do. Remind them that you're not more special than any other child in this church. You know, so rules are still rules.
Right.
But then also you have to you're held a little bit more accountable because of who your parents are. And I think that's kind of challenging sometimes for them. So trying to live that with them, but trying to be intentional about letting them still be kids, and still do some things that they want to do.
Right.
Let them grow and learn who they are. So it's been challenging. This raising kids period is challenging, but understanding that they have to have the spotlight on them at all times.
Yeah.
And that their imperfections are highlighted a lot.
Yeah.
I think it's challenging as a mother watching that for your child. You know, but yeah, it's been good. Yeah, it's been good.
Wow,
Challenging, but
17%.
good. Those
Yeah.
kids, boy. But I love them.
Yeah. So how do you remain authentic? And I think you kind of hit on it a little bit just throughout this conversation, but how do you remain authentic in ministry and not lose who you are?
First, you have to find out who you are. And you have to let that be defined by what the word says, not by what you feel, what you think, or what others say about you or to you. So that's the first step. Just being vulnerable before God, naked and ashamed, because there's some things you need to be, something that I was doing that I shouldn't have been doing.
Yeah.
So, but just being honest and transparent with God, and how to be authentic. I think when God has prepared you for a certain place, He's put things in you along the way that just becomes a part of who you are. Like I don't, like what you see is what you get. Like I'm not phony. I'm not,
Right.
you know, I'm not hugging you going, oh,
Right.
I'm not hugging her. I don't think that way. So, once I found out who I was and was okay with who I was, or challenged by who I was, it helped me to then start removing some of the mask. Because what happened was I started bleeding through the mask. So I think I'm covering it up, but now people seeing the blood dripping. And they don't know where it's coming from. So I'm kind of catch it because now you can see this coming out and this coming out. I tried to hide by all these different layers. And when you take one layer off, you put another layer on, or you got so many layers, you keep taking them off. So when you finally see who you really are, you wonder, is that who you really are, or who you had to be when you were in this environment or in this environment? So once you find out who you are, then you can become authentic and be honest with yourself and be okay with yourself. So when did that happen? It's still happening.
Yeah.
I don't think I have evolved. I think I'm still a process because life takes you in different journeys. I'm in different places. And so it's an evolving thing for me. Yeah, it's an evolving thing for me.
Is there a particular moment of breakthrough that stands out for you throughout your years in ministry?
I think there were several different ones. Again, as those layers were coming up, I was seeing other things about me that I had to work through, accept, and not try to hide, you know, behind, and understanding that when that comes off, you're going to deal with the pain and the emotion and the hurt with that. So breakthrough takes place consistently when you're honest with who you are and who you really want to be. But one particular time, I think maybe when it was just dealing with wanting to be a mom really bad, and what I went through with that journey, and what I put myself through by telling God I'm going to do it on my own. I got mad at God. I said, okay, I'm going to do this on my own. You ain't do it, I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to do it like this. And the journey that took me on was a painful journey. And I lost 7 children in the process. And I think that became a breakthrough moment for me. So I had to sit back and go, you ain't that bad. You know, you're not that powerful. And you can will whatever you want to will, but God knows what He has for you. He knows when He has, and He knows what He promised you. And my time might not be your time. And so that whole time was a big break. It was a breakthrough moment, because when you want something so bad, sometimes you do things by any means necessary, not understanding that it can be more detrimental. And so just that journey was a breakthrough, a breakthrough moment, for me. That was a long journey for me. Mm-hmm.
And this was like early on in ministry too, right?
Yeah. So I got married at 29, and my goal was to have my baby by around next year.
Your timeline.
My timeline. And so it was a journey, just losing them. Getting to that phase. So, you know, So it was early on. It started immediately, actually, in my journey in ministry. It started immediately. So holding other people's babies and blessing other people's babies and wishing I had my own was hard.
That's challenging.
It was
I can
hard.
imagine. Wow.
It was hard.
Wow. So you've been in ministry now how many years?
About 23.
23.
About 23. What's my math? 1990. Since 1998. I got married that April. We started ministry that October, November. So since 1998, so y'all do the math.
Right. It's
1998.
about right, I think.
Years.
I'm not the best at math either. Wow. So all your years in ministry, what do you love most about it?
The people. Their relationships. Like there's some people that have been such a tremendous blessing and have helped me to learn how to love, help me learn how to forgive, help me to be okay with who I am, show me what friendship and really looks like. But the people, gosh, it's just, that's it. So it doesn't really matter, like, I think it's the intimate relationship that you're able to form. The lasting ones, and some that don't last as long, but what you learn from that time, you learned a lot about yourself, about them, about the world. So I think the greatest thing about ministry is the honor of being with the people. So knowing that God placed these people in your life, and I sometimes say a lot that, it was more of a blessing to me that they were in my life, because what they taught me, what I learned from them, and that makes the journey a lot more fulfilling.
And you're talking about the good and bad that
talking
comes
about the good and the bad, because sometimes the relationships are challenging. But you have to still learn from that. And I learned who I was, and I learned who I was becoming, because as you matriculate through life, right? As you grow and as you learn, you become different. You're in different places, you're in different space, and your life is different. And being able to shift and change with that role, I learned some things that were hurtful. But I still learned from it.
Right.
And so I don't even regret that. At that moment, it was hard. I had to still put on a smile when I didn't want to. But I learned how to put situations and people in different boxes. So it doesn't. So it's not a negative box. It's just a box.
Right.
And sometimes that box is opened and it's adored, or sometimes it's wrapped, or sometimes it's stored away for another time. But it's knowing where it's putting people in different boxes, and being okay with putting myself and my family first. Like COVID taught us a lot, because I think people forgot that we went through COVID too, and we were losing family, we were losing friends. My house was in an uproar. First time they had virtual learning. What is that?
Right.
I got a new job, so I'm working virtually. I'm trying to make sure they're on. It was a lot. So my house was really just like everybody's trying to navigate through this journey, and you're scared. You don't know what's going on. You're losing loved ones, losing friends. You can't go places, and you just want to get out the house. And what do you do? And I feel like sometimes people forgot that we were going through that too. And so there were like some requests or some demands. I want can you I should be praying for them. I'm thinking, but I need you to pray for me, because right now I'm about to lose it. Like right now I need, but not being able to say that. And so just rising to the level of expectation, then understanding that it's okay to say, no, I can't do that, and be okay with that. It's okay with saying, I might not understand, but that's okay, because I got to do what's best for me or my children or my family or myself right now. And I'm going through like you're going through it. So even with all that, it's a learning experience. So the good, the bad, the challenging, that's all a part of having relationships. And I can't think of one that I would say I did not learn from. And that makes the journey worth it.
Awesome. I love it. So looking back, what is one thing that you would tell the unsaved you?
The unsaved me. See yourself the way God sees you, as opposed to the way others see you, and how you see yourself. I see all the flaws in me, right? Everything. This was too big. That was too small. That was this. That was that. But when you learn to just slow down and say, okay, well, God, how do you see me? And get in that word, and what does he say? Oh, I'm fearfully, and I'm really fearfully, and I'm really wonderfully made, really, with all this stuff. You think so?
Right.
With what I have here, and with this and with that, you sure? But I think I would say to myself that, see yourself the way God does. And then I think I would say several things to myself. Another thing I would say to myself probably would be, that the introduction of Jesus Christ in your life that you're taking for granted now, it's going to be the best thing that you've ever experienced. And it's going to take you to places. So just hold on. Like, don't get discouraged. You're going to make it through that. And you're going to make it through that. Not on your own strength, but God's going to see you through. So I would encourage myself to hold on to God. Would I say to myself, get saved earlier? I don't think I would. I think I needed those experiences to make me who I am.
Okay.
So, and I see God's hand and all of that, like just decisions that I made and people I was with and what was happening. I saw how God shifted and moved and did so many different things. So, but that would be the key thing, like, see God the way God sees you. Be so hard on yourself. God does have a plan for you. Then also that God got you. Yeah. And that's the key thing, because a lot of times I felt like I was alone, like, how am I going to get through this? But God has you. That's and right. I think I would share that.
That's right. Okay. I love it. Well, I want you to tell our audience, any other woman who's in your shoes, first lady, pastor, what is some encouragement, some advice that you would have for them?
So if you're a woman who's in ministry right now or getting ready to get into ministry, as far as being a pastor or a pastor's wife, or married to someone in ministry, don't lose yourself. Don't let others place standards on you that they don't even have for themselves. Trust God. Find a confidant. Find somebody, a woman of God that you can talk to and be honest with. That won't hold it against you later on. That won't give you information or respond to you based on plans to try to get in with you. They'll be real with you. They'll say, no, that's wrong. And they can check you and correct you and love you. So find that person you can really talk to. Make sure that you stay on your face. And make sure that you remember that God is going to see you through. And that's who you talk to. That's who you question. If you have questions, that's who you ask. Enjoy the journey. And be real with yourself. Don't put all these masks on, because it's hard to then take them off. And then what you see when you take them off, you might not like it. So when you find yourself feel like you have to be somebody that you're not, step back and ask God how to navigate through that. It's okay not to be perfect. It's okay that your hair's not in place all the time and your makeup's not on point all the time. And sometimes you're tired and you don't want to go to church tonight, right? There's survivors going on too long. You want to be home like everybody else, right? It's okay to be honest with who you are and where you are. I think people will respect that, because then they'll know that they don't have to be perfect, because you're not. Because a lot of times women look up to you and they look to how you're carrying yourself. And if they feel like you have it all together all the time, then they may feel like they're lacking because they don't. So be honest, be transparent. Ask God to heal you so you can share your story without worrying about it coming back. And enjoy the journey, understanding that it is such a great place to be in. Don't take people for granted. Love on them, appreciate them, pray for them, and ask God to help you to lead them. That would be some of the many things that I would say. But just be who you are, and let God use you the way that He wants to use you. It might be different. And it doesn't have to be in a pulpit. It can be talking to somebody on the phone. It can be just giving somebody a smile that hasn't seen a smile all day long. Yeah. Don't minimize who you are. Don't feel you have to be something that you're not. Just be you. God chose you for a reason. You can do it. And he has your back. So trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he'll direct your paths. That's some of the things I would share.
Awesome advice. Thank you. I was listening and taking mental notes as you explained that. But thank you so much, Pastor Kim, for being on today. Like I said, I'm truly humbled that you were available and willing to be on and share some of your story. Absolutely. And I want you to share a bit about your book and just tell our audience, what inspired it and where they can find it.
Okay, great. So I'm an author. I'm working on my 4th book. And the book I'm going to talk to you about today is called Choices. And this book is a phenomenal story for young women. I had some older women telling me that they saw themselves in it too. As we know, nowadays kids have a lot going on. And I tell people all the time, especially my own children, that there are 3 types of choices. There's choices that we make that affect ourselves and other people. There are choices that people make for us that affect us. And then there's choices that are made by other people that affect us. Some of those choices you can't really control, but you can control what you do in the midst of that choice. Or as a result of that choice. And so Choices is a book about her name is Karen, is the main character, and the book is kind of like a semi-autobiography, a little bit about me growing up. These are the 2 guys that I was just trying to figure out what I'm going to do with, 2 different types of life, but trying to figure out who I am. And the book talks about everything from what kids go through with bullying and trying to figure out who you are in life and who you're supposed to be and trying to fit in and not being guided by what society is doing, right? Not being ruled by that and being able to make your own decisions and knowing when enough is enough and knowing that your choice is going to affect you and how to sit down and kind of take time to make the choice. And at the end of the book, she's going to make a great choice. And so it's a young lady who's just trying to find her way through growing up and trying to be loved, trying to know who she is and trying to be accepted and still trying to understand the role of Jesus in her life and how it can definitely impact who she is and who she's going to become. You're going to love it. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, call me personally, got it, give it to you, got it in my trunk, carrying with me. But this is a book that I've watched transform lives, and not just for little girls. I've done this. It's a study that I do. I have a whole curriculum that goes with this that I do at some one school in particular, but some elementary, middle schools in Baltimore are using this book for small groups and stuff of that nature. And when I would do it at my school, I love it, Empowerment Academy. When I would do it with my 8th grade kids, my boys wanted to read, and they saw themselves in this story. And I wanted to create a book where our students would, or minorities, students of color, would see themselves. And a lot of times the books they read in school don't look like them. So that's why I was very intentional about what the cover looks like. And girls and boys both loved the storyline, what they learned, and I saw them make some changes in their life, and they was really focusing on the choices that they made. And so, please pick it up. It's a wonderful read. It's a quick read. And even if you're an adult, you're going to love it. You're going to find yourself right in the midst of this. So thank you for letting me plug my book.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It is definitely a great book. I can definitely vouch for that as an adult. So again, Pastor Kim, thank you so much for being on. I so appreciate you. And as we were just having this conversation, I'm grateful as I think back on our wedding day, because you were our coordinator pretty much. And I just think about that at times, and I'm like, Pastor Kim came through like in the clutch for real, because yeah, it just was not happening that rehearsal night, and you really like stepped up and made sure that things were like handled. So I still thank you, and I appreciate you for that. I really do. Wedding day too. You were on. My grandmother said I wanted her to just sit down and eat. She just kept doing stuff. I said that goes back to you just loving hard, because
absolutely. I wanted that day to be special for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to make mention of that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes,
so, it was a wonderful day.
It was.
And Jared was super pumped. I mean, I knew that story, so that day had to be perfect. As long as he waited for this day, it had to be a perfect day. So, and it was. It was a great day.
It was. Mm-hmm. So thank you again for being on.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you everyone for tuning in today to Breakthrough Conversations. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If anything stood out to you, leave a comment in the comment section. Make sure you like the episode, share it with someone. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe. In the meantime, be blessed and have a wonderful day.